Good morning. I'm Matt Driskill, editor of Asian Aviation Magazine and AsianAviation.com. Welcome to the latest In Conversation, still sponsored by Metrojet of Hong Kong. We're speaking again with Subhas Menon. He's the Director General of the Association of Asia-Pacific Airlines. Subhas, welcome back to In Conversation. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Matt, and thanks for having me again.
We spoke in January, about a little over 6 months ago, I guess. Things were actually looking up a bit. Vaccines were being rolled out. People in the industry were talking about second quarter might be better. We might see some quarantines lifted, things like that. Domestic travel in China was coming back. But that didn't work out so well. Now we're in the third quarter. The Delta variant arrived on our doorsteps. Things don't look so good. Your group, AAPA, released stats for June not too long ago, and the picture wasn't pretty. Cargo looked okay, but passenger travel was still way down. Give us a quick recap on that, and how do things look from where you sit in Sydney right now?
Well, Matt, I think, the world is a case of two halves. So you have the one half, which is on the west. Most places have got, a large part of their populations fully vaccinated. They are lifting many domestic restrictions, and they are beginning to even open up travel, including international travel. You have North America, you have Europe, you have UK, you have the Middle East. They're all pretty optimistic, about travel recovery. But the other half, of which Asia Pacific forms a very dominant share, is, you're looking at places with largely unvaccinated populations. So they are also now, fighting resurgence of the virus fanned by the Delta variant. So things are not looking very good. I would say that cargo is the only silver lining. Everything else is looking down, and even domestic travel is down in most parts of the world in the Asia-Pacific region. So until vaccination rates are up above 50%, I don't think governments in the Asia-Pacific have got very much penchant to open up travel.
And you just mentioned domestic travel again. I mean, China was looking good, actually. It was almost back to pre-COVID levels. And then you had some outbreaks, I think, in Nanjing and Beijing. I think also Wuhan, they're testing every single person in the city. So that is kind of crimping the style of Chinese domestic travel. South Korea was okay, I guess, but they still had some problems there. I spoke to one of our contributors about Japan. He said Japanese aviation domestic travel was still way down. Singapore's tough. There's no domestic market. But the country here is talking about treating COVID as an endemic disease and possibly even opening up travel to vaccinated passengers and things like that around September or so. Is that something we can look forward to? And are we still going to see domestic travel in places like China? Is that going to come back?
Well, I think there's a fundamental difference between pandemic and endemic. Until the pandemic is over, I think countries cannot start looking at the situation as only endemic. So China, of course, domestic travel that actually even exceeded what was in 2019, but now everywhere we find domestic travel receding. China, India, all of Southeast Asia, Indonesia, Philippines, Malaysia, Japan also, Korea. So apart from international travel, domestic travel is also down. Cargo, although I said it's a silver lining, it's also held back because belly hold capacity is drastically reduced because of the grounding of fleets. So until we get the vaccination to provide a basic level of protection to the community, I don't see governments really taking their finger off the pulse at the moment. So that is really the situation that we are facing. Plus, I think travel and tourism needs to be prioritized. We talked about healthcare workers being vaccinated first. In some places, healthcare workers have not been fully vaccinated, and also aviation workers, should be considered as frontline workers, because they are really at the coalface of everything, and they are also not prioritized for vaccination. So I think recovery is still a ways off.
Your group, AAPA, along with the good folks at IATA, have been really working hard, and not recently. I mean, Alexander Dejuniak, way back when all this started, has really pressured countries to ease up on quarantine requirements, to work on things like testing. It seems like some governments, with vaccinations, people are saying, okay, if you're vaccinated, you can do X, Y, and Z. But we're still seeing a lot of quarantines in place, and the goalposts seem to be moving, if not daily, then at least weekly. Hong Kong said at one point they were not going to quarantine bankers or something, and then they were going to reduce it to 8 days or 7 days for certain people. And it's unlikely we're ever going to see zero cases at all, which is what governments want. But we know that's just not going to happen. I mean, how do you convince governments to ease up on the quarantines and try to get travel restarted?
Well, I think to be fair, I think the governments in the Asia Pacific region are really fighting a tough battle, because of the quick spread of Delta variant. One thing I think governments are realizing now is that this virus knows no borders. And also there's no such thing as herd immunity, because unless the whole world is in control of this virus, nobody is in control of this virus. So that is basically the situation. And the coin has also dropped on vaccination. So we see many governments really redoubling efforts to speed up their vaccinations in their places. And this is also working here in New South Wales. We've seen just 4 weeks ago, only 12% of the population was vaccinated, but now we're already looking at 44% of the population have already received at least one dose of the vaccine, and this is seen in Malaysia, in Hong Kong, and many other places, Philippines as well. So that is a good sign. And even in the West, when they have opened up travel, is only when they have achieved a critical mass of vaccinations that they started to open up. So I think that is a critical factor here in the Asia Pacific region also. And some governments are already coming up with plans, to open up travel, once vaccination is up to speed. Of course, starting with vaccinated travelers first. So we see that as happening in phases, and governments are paying heed to what the industry is saying, and they themselves are now realizing the importance of travel and tourism to their economies. But it's a long game. It takes a bit of a while to get these things up and running. What is very important is that the industry has to work very closely with governments, to draw up robust protocols, for opening up travel, and also to encourage governments to agree multilaterally on a standard, at least streamlined protocol and measures.
Well, that was my next question. Of course, is we've heard a lot about digital passports. IATA's got the travel pass. The Commons Project has its pass. There's lots of different passes out there. I've got kind of a two-part question here. Number one, when are we going to see these common standards come into place? Because right now, my wife is French. She's talking about going back to France at Christmas if she can. The French have their own sort of vaccine passport. But we need some standards so that you can cross borders easily using the same standard. And then secondly, are travelers willing to use these vaccine passports? We've seen some pushback in places like Paris, for example, not just Paris, but I think also in Australia, where you've had demonstrations of people not even traveling, but even in their own country, they don't want to be forced to show proof of vaccination to go into a restaurant or a movie theater or something like that. So, number one, when are we going to see some standards? Number two, even with standards, are travelers, air passengers going to be willing to use those digital passports?
Well, if governments continue to keep their own counsel, each has its own rules and requirements, we are never going to get over this hump, So I think that is key, and ICAO has already started planning for a multilateral conference, towards the end of the year, to try and get a consensus, on a harmonious framework for reopening travel. It's been quite detailed, their recommendations. WHO has come up with what a vaccine certificate, a digital vaccine certificate, or a digital testing certificate should look like. What is the format, that these certificates should comply with. ICAO has come up with a digital visible seal, which is more like a barcode, which contains all the information, so that travelers can navigate the travel process, safely and seamlessly, as well as securely, because the privacy is also a concern, as well as authenticity of the documentation. So it's all there. It's now up to the governments to come together. And I think they should be thinking about what these things are and how they can facilitate the whole process, rather the recovery of travel. It is also important. It is also important that this for governments to realize that digital passports digital health passes may not be everybody's cup of tea. So common law dictates that you must have digital as well as analog formulations of these processes, and WHO has provided guidance for both, to be implemented, and also digital health passes. They are not really passports, they are basically tools, to facilitate the whole process. So for them to be effective, governments must also start issuing digital certificates, digital vaccination certificates, digital test certificates, as well as sanction the use of digital passes at their airports, for border access. So these things will also have to take place, and I think this will be the crux of the discussions that are going to take place at the multilateral forums that are going to be organized in the coming months.
And do you think travelers are going to be willing to use these? I mean, I know I am. I'm vaccinated. I downloaded the digital version from the Singapore government onto my phone. I also have a printed version. And, I talked about this with some other people the other day, Conrad Clifford at IATA, who's now the Deputy Director General, Alex Hungate over at SATS, and other people, Stefano Baronci at the Airport Council for Asia Pacific. If we don't get it digital, I mean, you can't, and people have to rely on paper documents. It's going to take, I think what IATA said, 8 hours using paper documents to process a single passenger. If and when travel does pick up, that's going to be impossible.
Well, I think the incentives are there. Firstly, it's shorter queues. You have the whole travel process within your control, seamless travel. And from past experience, we know that digital will catch on very quickly. We have seen e-tickets, we have seen people using e-check-in and things like that. So the incentives are there, and I think people will really embrace this, when it happens, because the alternative is, as you say, long queues and making the travel process that much more cumbersome.
Yeah. Let's switch gears for a minute. We've got the IPCC report coming out soon from the United Nations on the climate. Sustainability, it was interesting to me back in June. it seemed like everybody and their dog was releasing a plan to go green. They were burnishing their environmental credentials. There were Rolls-Royce, CFM, Pratt and Whitney. There were several other organizations, manufacturers, talking about sustainability. What are you hearing from your member airlines here in Asia? Are they really serious about going green?
Well, yes, I think so. Already 5 airlines in our grouping have committed to net zero. The industry has been already in the gear of decarbonization for some time now. Of course,
Are you there?
of course, the medium-term goal was carbon neutral growth
Yeah.
with
Subhas,
Corsia.
Subhas,
Uh,
let me interrupt you for a second. I lost you there for a minute,
um,
and your screen is frozen.
also signed up to Corsia. It's already. Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now, and this is a perfect example of why we need to start traveling again, because you can
Can
only.
you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. Can you not hear me?
I can hear you. I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, this is let me explain to our viewers. This
Is
is
it good now?
Yeah, you're fine. Let me ask you the question again, but I'll explain to our viewers. This is a perfect example of why people need to travel, because you can only do so much via Skype and Zoom and all of that. So let's restart that, because I lost you there for a minute. Tell us again about the 5 airlines in the group that are going carbon neutral or net zero.
Yeah, 5 of the airlines have already committed to net zero. Of course, the short-term goal was for the industry to achieve a 1.5% fuel efficiency. We already achieved 2% pre-COVID, of course, the Asia-Pacific airline industry is also working towards the decarbonization measures. The midterm goal was carbon neutral growth. So we are already in the mode of carbon neutral growth, because all our governments have signed up to Corsia. And, so this will give us a huge ballast to getting to the industry's goal. Of course, as you know, there are various pathways, to achieve the goal. Some of them are not really suitable for international operations. I mean, as you know, the technology enhancement with hydrogen electric powered aircraft is only suitable for flights below 1,500 kilometers. 80% of Asia-Pacific Airlines operations above 1,500 kilometers. So operational efficiency is already something which the airlines have been working on in terms of waste management, also making use of biodegradable material for amenities, equipment, and food items, as well as fuel efficiency, at airports, single engine taxiing, as well as route economics, while they are overflying various places. So that's all in place, but that only gives about 10 to 12% of contribution to emission reductions. So the bulk of the industry's efforts will have to be with sustainable aviation fuel, of which there is not enough supply on a cost-effective basis. And of course, market-based measures like Corsia. So Corsia is very important for the industry to get there. I mean, at the end of the day, signing up to a net zero goal is the easy part. The real hard yards have to be done in terms of implementing the pathway. So that is where the bulk of our efforts are focused on.
I mean, you talked about hydrogen. I don't think we're going to see that happen in my lifetime for long-haul flights at all. It might be good for an urban air taxi if you're in Jakarta or Manila, like a volocopter kind of operation. That might work. But flying, New York to London or Paris to Singapore, I mean, there's just no way that's going to happen in my lifetime. Because there's not enough hydrogen, for one thing, and to create it is going to create more pollution in the first place. I want to ask you a question, though, about this. I wrote an editorial the other day I think I love the fact that the industry in Asia Pacific and elsewhere is talking about being net zero by 2050. I think that's too late. And I asked this question to Willie Walsh at IATA, and he said, well, that's as fast as we can go. Do you think that's as fast as the industry can go to be net zero by 2050? I think it's going to be too late by then.
Well, I think we have already been talking about this for some time now, and all studies and analysis that have been done, shows that 2050 is probably the time frame that we can work towards a specific goal. But that doesn't mean that decarbonization efforts, are not going to crank up, in the meantime. That is definitely the case, and the industry is really focused on it. And we know that when we finally get back up in the air again, this is something that will be expected of us, by the consumers, and we will not be forgiven, if we do not have plans in place to continuously decarbonize our operations, So that will be there, so you could say that 2050 is a kind of a milestone that we are aiming for, but that doesn't mean that we are not going to step on the gas, forgive the pun, to get there in good measure. Sustainable aviation fuel is, of course, as I mentioned, the only real dominant measure that international operations or airlines with a large amount of international operations have to rely on, other than CORSIA or market-based measures. But at the moment, sustainable aviation fuel supply is not enough, for us to switch the majority of our requirements to SAF. For that to happen, I think the whole industry has to come together. Governments will have a big part to play. Instead of taxes or mandates, they should be providing subsidies as well as incentives. Reallocation, of land resources and feedstock towards aviation fuel. We also need the support of the fuel suppliers, to focus their attention on providing sustainable aviation fuels instead of fossil fuels for the needs of aviation. Airports, will have to ready the distribution channels and supply chains so that the fuel farms, will be up and running with sustainable aviation fuels. And of course, the airlines will also have to work with the industry to make sure that they have the right aircraft to operate with sustainable aviation fuel. So all this takes time. It cannot be overnight. In the meanwhile, we do have an available measure, which is CORSIA and similar market-based measures. And research is also ongoing, for alternative sources of fuel, not just hydrogen and electricity. We have carbon capture and carbon sequestration. These research projects are also underway by the industry, so that we have enough cost-effective supply of alternatives, to help us reach our goals.
Subhas, we're running a little bit short on time, so I've got two final questions. Let's get your tarot cards out, or the crystal ball you have on the shelf, or jaw sticks, or whatever you use to predict the future. I can remember when Alexander de Juniac was talking about, okay, things will get back to normal in 2024. That at that time, that seemed a very reasonable assumption. Now, as we've gone into this longer, the shutdowns probably lasted longer than people originally thought it would. And again, vaccines rolling out, but some places slowly, so on and so forth. Obviously, things really aren't going to improve this year for passenger traffic. Even to the end of the year, I think the fourth quarter is probably a wash too. Would you agree with that? I mean, are we still looking at 2024 for a quote back to normal, or is that can anybody even say that right now?
I think vaccine is the key factor, and if you look at the estimates before Asia Pacific is sufficiently vaccinated, we are looking at end 2023. So 2024, I would say, is still a reasonable time frame, but of course, things can speed up. If the whole world comes together and realize that they have to share the burden and address the issues of vaccine inequity, then might be sooner. But on paper, based on the data that we have, I think we are still looking at 2024.
Okay. As you know, I like to end these shows on a bright spot. Sometimes it's hard to find at this time. From where you sit at AAPA, are there any bright spots we can look forward to? Is cargo the only bright spot for Asia at the moment, or is there another bright spot I don't see?
Well, I think, Matt, we have to be grateful for tender mercies. Cargo is definitely one of them. Second one is, I think, the scientific community. To come up with vaccines in such a short period of time, I think it gives us a lot of hope, for the future. And they are also working on remedies for COVID-19. And the third thing is that most of our airlines are still around. In spite of the long shutdown. And they will be key to recovery. Because they have been able to hang on using various devices and mechanisms in place. I think we should be thankful for that also, so that when recovery starts, they will be key for the jumping start of not only aviation but also the entire economy.
Good. Subhas Menon, Director General of the Association of Asia-Pacific Airlines, thanks for joining me in conversation.
Always a pleasure, man. All the best.